I'm sure everyone can remember their retail days. The periods of our lives when we worked long hours for shit pay and at the mercy of every dickhead who felt a soy sauce shortage was a legitimate reason to ruin someone's shift. I sure wish that soccer moms with bad haircuts or thumb-shaped juice heads with little man syndrome were the biggest of my problems. We all make jokes about working retail being hell. Some even compare it to purgatory, a space between where time passes at a painstaking crawl. It's nothing compared to this. I had my back pressed against a cold refrigerator in the appliance showroom. I was starting to get the hang of this disturbing version of hide and seek, but I was getting pretty tired of being the one hiding all the time. I could hear the subtle, deep-throated clicking of the creature as it made its slow pursuit up the aisles, meticulously searching. It knew I was here. They always did. I could see the arch of its back over high shelves, and its gangly limbs clinging to the beams to keep its balance. I held my hands over my mouth and tried to steady my breath as the creature made its clumsy advance. A viscous sludge oozed from its skin, sounding like tar when it dripped to the floor. The sludge eating away at everything it touched like a corrosive piranha solution. It smelled of hot floor at a dumpster, like burnt tie rubber, warm beer, and melted plastic with the nose-curling sourness of spoiled food. I could feel the muscles in my gut seizing, threatening to eject the dry cereal I shoveled into my mouth this morning. And the refrigerators rattled as I saw a meaty, clawed hand the size of a large dog cling to their tops, followed by the sound of a ragged breath. The smell grew heavier as the hand slapped from one fridge to another until it settled atop of mine. It sat there, just long enough for me to wonder if I'd been found out, before it, along with the smell, vanished entirely. Oh, thank God. I waited for my heart to move from hammering in my throat to back in my chest. I peeked my head out from behind the fridge to see no one. I was alone again.
Management nearly got you this time, man.
Or at least I thought I was. I about pissed myself and quickly turned around to find a mannequin standing within shoe-throwing distance in an ugly sweater and a pair of fitted khakis. Fred! Oh, Jesus Christ! I told you to start announcing yourself.
I mean, I could have, but then you would have ended up as Cheryl's lunch.
I know what everyone would be thinking right about now. This guy is hiding from monsters and talking to mannequins. He's probably nuts. And, yeah, you'd probably be right. But consider this first. I work retail. I deserve to be crazy, so reserve all judgments for now. The mannequin, Fred, swung his body from side to side, stiffly waddling over to me.
What'd you do to make her mad this time? Breathe too loud? Sit too long?
I stood up and dusted the lint bunnies from my pants. Fidgeting with a signed sticky tab, I said.
Yeah, that'll do it. She got Juan earlier. Poor bastard didn't even see her coming.
Fred looked like a life-sized Ken doll and spoke with a New York accent. His mouth never moved, though. It was permanently fixed into a smile, filled with a row of perfectly straight, white-painted teeth. But his eyes, those moved. They seemed to follow you. It was like one of those spooky old paintings where eyes seemed to track you around the room, no matter where you went. It was, a little creepy. Donkey tattoo, Juan? Oh, I liked him. He didn't give me as many stink eyes as the others.
Well, he's got no eyes to stink with anymore. Squashed like a watermelon. Kersplat! Cheryl didn't even stop to look at him. Sheesh. Better him than us.
Us? It won't eat you. It would be like eating a plastic bead, I said, as I began to reface the water filters.
I mean, yeah, but I give her indigestion for you if she ever does.
Fred made an attempt to put his hands on his hips with an awkward, rubbery squeak. How noble of you. If Fred had been endowed with a gift of face muscles, he'd probably be wearing a shit-eating grin.
It ain't easy being a hero.
I listened again to see if Cheryl was still around. Can never be too careful with manager 5 years to the ground, Cheryl. The screams in the distance told me it was somewhere in household chemicals, which meant there was around 6 miles of store between us. The hellscape where I work is called ThetaMart. It was supposed to be like a super shopping center, best described as if a small mall and a Costco had a baby. But this baby was unfortunately disfigured so horribly, it broke and disregarded the laws of reality we live in. All that to say, ThetaMart is like a retail affair baby if H.P. Lovecraft was the mistress. It's full of impossible creatures, monsters, and products an insane person couldn't even conjure in their strangest fever dreams. Everything inside ThetaMart is white, a stark, sterile white from floor to ceiling, with shelves that stand several tall men high. There's this lingering smell of cheap plastic in here, and the only thing piercing the constant, mind-numbing silence is the distant sound of tiny elevator music that seemingly comes from everywhere and nowhere. The tune feels so familiar, just not enough to place or follow. If that wasn't chilling enough, the screams that abruptly break the silent hours when management is nearby is frightening enough to start the heart of a dead man. Which is why it was so strange when first, a momentary blanket of silence fell over the store, like what they do for memorials. It was an oppressive, drawn-out stillness, before being broken by a voice erupting from the invisible speakers.
Max, there is a call waiting for you on...
The page was followed by a shrill garble that sounded like Jabba the Hutt was choking on rocks, before it went silent again. I looked at Fred. What the fuck was that?
You got a page, man. You gotta answer it.
How? There's no phone in this department. The nearest working phone that I knew of was in electronics, which was about 6 or so miles away. I just cut my losses and throw myself from the highest shelf. There was no way I'd make it without being maimed or eaten before getting there. As absurd as this place is, I don't think trekking over to Toys and finding a Play School Elmo and Friends smartphone would cut it either.
Well, it won't stop paging till you answer it. And trust me, you're gonna wanna answer it.
What happens if I don't? He doesn't respond and instead stares silently for a moment. Hello? He lunged forward and snatched my phone. Hey! I swiped to get it back, but Fred was quick for a guy with limited mobility.
Sorry, pal. You'll thank me later.
He began speed waddling away. I actually had to run after him just to keep up, which was impressive considering his legs only moved in 2 directions. Fred! I can't leave without my... He disappeared, heading deeper into the store. Oh, man. Considering the short time I've been here, I've learned a lot about this place and how it operates. Sort of. In the grand scheme of it all, I probably know absolutely dipsquat, but because of these dubious guidelines, I've made it far enough to share this. Stay away from the other associates. They may look like people or potential survival partners, perhaps the last anchor you could hold steadfast to sanity with, but they are absolutely, definitely not. Far from it. Avoid them at all costs. They might have been human once, but they certainly aren't anymore. The areas that turn yellow, or the zones of the store that are more decrepit than the other areas, are more prone to management activity. That's what Cheryl is. The denizens of this place are known as management. The higher the status, the nastier they are. Be sure to follow the first 2 rules, no matter what. It will make life a lot easier. Funnily enough, Fred actually bestowed upon me a lot of the knowledge I accumulated about this place, which pissed me off even more when I had to actively choose to break all 3 rules. Fred, this isn't funny! I don't have time for your crap! I continued walking at a brisk pace, following the distant taps of hollow dress shoes. All around me, the fluorescent lights became yellower, more tarnished. They flicker and hum overhead, and some blown out completely. There are pillows and overturned furniture, soggy boxes, and broken glass strewn about the linoleum. The smell of stale, old couch stuffing and mildew penetrated the air and hung like a wet blanket, making it slightly uncomfortable to breathe. I walked beneath the hanging sign saying in bold blue letters, "Home and Decor." Oh crap. I found myself reconsidering how important my phone really was. I could just buy a new one. Sure, the other one isn't even paid off yet. But is it really worth being eaten, or squashed, or whatever it is monsters do to people? A scrawny college student sustained purely off ramen and espresso can't taste that good, right? Just when I talked myself into abandoning my phone with every puppy pic of my dog I had ever taken, I felt eyes fixed on me. I had been spotted.
Maxwell.
Oh, shit. I very slowly turn around to find looming over me was Nosferatu. Well, not actually Nosferatu, but he could have had me fooled if this were a spirit Halloween. Ralph, you look, alive today. Ralph's skin hung to his skeletal frame like wet toilet paper. The white of his eyes were as sunken and yellow as the lights around us, and his apron, identical to mine, covered in various stains of several concerning colors. I tried my best not to stare at them as he leaned down and hovered closer to my face. His irises glistened a gross, milky white with something swirling behind their film.
Why aren't you in your department, Maxwell?
Now would have been an amazing time to be great at lying, but I wasn't much of a talker at the best of times. I was getting... My eyes began to frantically dart around for a sign or... milk!
Milk?
Yeah, milk. Can't have my bones breaking on the job, right? I made an attempt at a playful punch, but Ralph was so much squishier than he should have been. I felt my stomach lurch when my fist sunk through his arm and into his torso like a damn slime-filled stress ball. Except instead of alleviating stress, he makes it so much worse. He stared at me for a moment in unimpressed silence. Ralph was a supervisor. Not only that, but I managed to piss him off twice in my first week. Needless to say, he's far from my biggest fan. He also makes me really uncomfortable.
You're heading in the wrong direction.
Oh, really? Oh, sheesh, I'm still getting turned around. 3 weeks and I still have no sense of direction. Typical Max. I took a step back. Well, I better be on my way now. Looks like I've got a ways to walk.
I'll call for assistance.
No! Lying wasn't working. Try being honest.
Why is that?
You're gross! Too honest? He said nothing. I mean, grossly understaffed. I mean, you look like you're barely holding on with these dang staff shortages, right? I don't want to impose. Nailed it. He continued to eyeball me for a tiny eternity. All I could do was stand there and sweat. Maybe if I don't move, he will leave? Like a T-Rex. Unfortunately, Ralph didn't follow any predatory chicken rules. He took a step back and very slowly started opening his mouth. It stretched and cracked like the Conjuring house with osteoporosis. His teeth were rotting and twisted, and his tongue was a sickly purple color. If I wasn't running on 3 hours of sleep and 2 Red Bulls, I probably would have started screaming like a kid in a haunted Chuck E. Cheese. Just as Ralph took in an impressively deep breath to shriek or howl or whatever awful sound the supervisors make to summon managers, I saw my phone fly out of seemingly nowhere with the momentum of a bullet. It twirled wildly like an iOS throwing star and effectively caved in the right side of Ralph's face. He fell to the floor with a tragic plopping sound that reminded me of a soggy banana peel landing in a puddle.
Booyah!
Fred sprung out from behind a love seat and started doing an awkward victory dance.
Shoulda tried out for the Yankees.
Hopefully you have some reflexes to go with that throwing arm. You're lucky I don't do the same to you for running off with my phone.
Oh, come on, Maxie. I had to get you moving somehow.
I didn't respond. Instead, I leaned down and picked up my phone from Ralph's caved-in dome. It came free with a moist snick. Thankfully, there was no gray matter or blood, just a gross and slightly greasy film where his skin and my phone made contact. If I have to touch one more bodily secretion that isn't mine one more time this week. Fred slowly stuck his foot into Ralph's side and laughed when the old man made a sound like a deflating sponge cake.
You'll get used to it. Now, let's get this show back on the road.
No. I need to go back to appliances where it's safe. I haven't been here for 5 minutes, and Ralph was ready to hand me a pink slip from life. Fred somehow managed to blow a raspberry without his lips moving and pat my shoulder.
He wishes he had clearance to do that. All he can do is hoop and holler. Ain't that right, Ralphie?
Ralph, now drooling, said nothing and only continued to make more squishy, deflating noises. Is he okay?
Oh, yeah. I saw him get crushed by a shelf once. He's even been sat on by Bonnie and still got up. He was totally fine, too. I'm sure he enjoyed getting sat on more, though. Sly dog.
Wow.
I know, right? He's all about that bass. I respect that.
Ew. No, I mean, does he just not die, or does he not have bones? He looked back down at Ralph, then back at me.
Well, he's got something.
How the heck did he even get a squash-proof card?
Ha! What? You want one too? Trust me, you don't want what he's got. Shit's probably terminal.
What's that mean? Fred did something that looked like he was trying to shrug, trying and failing. He also had the nerve to take another swipe at me in an attempt to grab my phone again. I jerked it away just in time and slapped his plastic hand away. Ow, if you don't cut it out! Why did you bring me here anyway? You hate home and decor. Fred looked like he was about to say something, seemed to buffer, then looked back down at Ralph one last time.
Well, my original plan was to ask Grandpa Pudding here if he happened to have a phone, but I doubt he'd tell us now. Guess we go with Plan B.
What's Plan B? I asked. Fred answered this by taking another swipe at my phone. I stuck it in the air as high as I could manage. Hey! God, you're worse than a 3-year-old today! What the hell, man? I've seen Fred do some pretty weird stuff, aside from the living mannequin thing. All it took was the fraction of a second for me to blink for Fred to be gone with my fucking phone again. I looked at my empty hand, then over my shoulder at him booking it down the aisles. Before I could sputter the creative string of swears I had threaded together just for Fred's ears, the store was plunged into silence again. Uh-oh. It lasted a few seconds longer than before.
Max, there is a call waiting for you on.
The horrible sound it made was louder. So much louder this time. I slapped my hands over my ears and could feel the sound vibrating in my chest. It only lasted for a moment, but that was all it took to leave me with an annoying ring in my ears. So that's what he meant. Now begrudgingly coming to terms that this shift was going to be a probably very dangerous trek across the store, I looked back at the now deflated Ralph. Within moments of being clocked with my phone, he looked like a snake was running around in a human suit and shed him at some point. I almost wanted to feel bad, but he was a dick, and I thought better of it. I instead opted to start going through his pockets. Let's see, food tokens, a box cutter, and some new blades. I'm sure those will come in handy. I had made the mistake of losing my pocket knife on my first day to the disembodied appendages that live under the shelves in aisles 12 and 16. Don't ask, that's a story for another time. I clicked up the blade, and the thing extended to almost 4 inches long. How many newbies like me have you used this thing on, Ralph? Because I certainly haven't seen you open any boxes. I stood, gave him one last squishy nudge with my foot, and went to go find that stupid mannequin. The home and decor department almost reminded me a bit of a decrepit thrift store. The musty smell of old, used things and old, used people. Ralph fit in perfectly with the washed-out background that was bathed in piss yellow. But I also couldn't help but wonder, why did this side of the store look as awful as it did? There were even water stains on the fiberglass ceiling tiles way up above. Everything I've seen of the store looked awful in some capacity, but the level of awfulness here was borderline ridiculous. My job here had me stuck in a different department every shift, something referred to as a floater. Basically, I was being trained in a bit of everything. The one who hired me told me that I would have this position until I found my place. I thought that statement was strange, because I was only supposed to be here for about 4 months. At one point, I was certain I would stay longer. $20 an hour for a retail gig sounded like cake. But now, I find myself wondering if I'll even last that long.
You've been standing there an awfully long time, Maxwell.
The sound of a woman's voice hung itself in the air and arrested my attention. It was enough to snap me back to the moment so hard I nearly got whiplash. Wet and broken glass crunched under my feet as I spun. I pulled out my new box cutter, holding it out in front of me like I could actually fight something if I needed to. It's Max. And can't a guy take a second to collect his thoughts?
Sure you can. But standing in the middle of an aisle muttering to yourself might be considered a little crazy, wouldn't you say?
A massive spider, as big as a Volkswagen Beetle, slowly peered over the shelves that had been covered in ugly pillows and rested atop of it. She had a shiny black body and long, sharp legs that still shimmered like obsidian spears in the low light, and easily extended to around 17 feet. Her 8 eyes were a deep red, and her 2 front legs, ending in unmistakably human hands with painted, manicured nails. Janice, from what I understand, is one of the vendors. She's also one of the few creatures in here I don't find myself running and screaming from, shockingly. She's just kind of a bitch. Considering the things that go on here, I'm not exactly concerned with what people think of me, I say, slowly aiming the box cutter away. The giant arachnid almost seemed to smile smugly at me from her perch, her mandibles moving and twitching as she spoke.
Oh, not enjoying the position? You seemed so enthusiastic a few weeks ago.
Why in God's name do you think I would be enjoying this place? I just had a run-in with Ralph I'll be trying to scrub from my mind for the next 3 weeks, and I had no idea the shit I'd have to deal with a few weeks ago. This is entrapment. It's illegal.
Still on that, are we? Not the brightest color in the box, but a busted broke college student down on his luck with $5 to his name. People like you thrive in extreme situations. You adapt, not because you want to, but because you are in the unique position of not having any other choice.
I don't want to adapt or change or anything. I just wanted a job, not end up with a new list of phobias or nearly be killed every time I clock in. $20 an hour isn't worth dying for.
Well, seeing as you were hired here, no one will miss you if you bite the dust. So make the best of the situation. Learn. Maybe bitch less. It will make you more likable.
Ouch.
It's true.
I know it's true. But you didn't have to say it.
ThetaMart, as well as being a space in between, has the ability to bring out something in people they would rather not look at. It changes them into something more.
She looked at a moldy pillow sitting beside her on the shelf. She huffed while pushing it away, and it went tumbling to the floor with a wet plop.
More compelling, I'd say. You get to break the monotony and forget how small you are.
I am perfectly comfortable with how small I am, thanks.
What a winner. I'm sure your girlfriend shares the same sentiment.
Was there a point to you grudge crawling up there, or are you just here to harass me?
I like having the high ground, and I want to give you a bit of friendly advice.
Well, don't leave me in suspense, Obi-Wan.
Who's that?
He's... never mind. What is it? She sighed and slowly lowered herself down the shelf, creaking under her weight as she did so, She lowered her voice to a whisper.
Do you know why they tell you to stop and smell the roses?
Yeah? She reached her hand down into my apron pocket and took out one of my food tokens I had lifted from Ralph. They were made of tarnished brass.
You may want to skip it this time where you're going. As for these...
She examined one of them closely.
Heads or tails, little bug?
Tails, I said. She hummed and flicked the coin into the air. I watched the coin owl-eyed as it hovered above us for just a moment before she snatched it and slapped it down on the outer side of her hand. I shuddered reflexively at the quick motion, then felt embarrassed for doing so. Janice seemed to grin in amusement, peeked under her hand at the coin, then extended it to me.
Tails. Luck sways in your favor today. Use it wisely, and you might see the end of your shift,
she said. You can't really determine that with a coin. Luck isn't real.
You are really going to look a giant talking spider in her face and say...
She lowered her voice a few octaves and said in the universal guy voice, you know the one.
Luck isn't real.
She did have a point, but to accept luck was real was to accept my luck up until this point was actually kind of terrible, and I had no idea why or if I had any way to change it. Well, if luck is real, it'd be nice to catch a break, but I'm not saying it is.
Whatever you say, floater.
She sighed and rubbed all 8 of her eyes.
That mannequin wanted me to pass this on to you.
She pulled out a pair of pink toucan-billed flower clippers from seemingly nowhere.
Go to the garden in live goods. He's waiting for you there. Like I said, avoid smelling the roses.
She handed the clippers to me and tisked.
Dumbass.
Like roses specifically, or...
Get to steppin'. I have work to do.
Thanks.
Don't mention it. Really.
In typical spider fashion, she crept back up the shelf and disappeared over the other side. If every spider was as rude as she is, I don't know if I would feel quite as bad as I used to when I would bring a shoe down on them. I stuck the clippers in my apron and began to head in the direction I was pretty sure was the garden.